10:36 p.m., but it was originally entered here. So what happens is when you first enter a trade, you enter your trade, set your stop loss, and then you come over here to the 10 trade review in Academy, and you just type in what you did. So this is a Casper short. His entry was 3813. And then when you're done, whatever happens, you hit reply to your original post, and then your reply attaches your banner, and that basically puts it here. Or you can, put down what happened, like negative 43% or whatever, if you don't know how to do a banner until you learn. But that way we can go back. I can see that the original entry was on February 24th, 9:35 p.m., 3813. Then I can go back, look here for Saturday the 24th at 9:35, and the entry point, we can set an entry point there, 3813, and then that way we can pretty much find the spot where you entered, and then create the thing 3813. Okay. Jeez. All right, so he hit the bottom of the bottom here, right? So this is his entry point right on this candle right here. It dipped down, he bought that entry, and then it ran up on it. Okay, so there's probably two things that we can cover here, and one is called the 3-minute entry. All right, so for everyone who doesn't know, a 3-minute entry means this, right? We enter. Does anybody know what the 3-minute 3-candle entry is? So a 3-candle entry is Pad Sweet, enjoy your stay, is basically where once you find your entry, and nobody ever really teaches this, but this is kind of like something we teach. Once you find your entry, right, and you go to enter, when you decide to enter, you go to your 3-minute candle, and on your 3-minute candle, you enter 1 minute before the next 3-minute candle. Right, so let me say that again. So once you figure out your entry, you go to the 3-minute candle, or you don't even have to go to the 3-minute candle. You just have to look at the time, right? And on your clock, you would want to enter the trade basically after 2 minutes of the last 3-minute candle. So 1 minute before the next 3-minute candle. So for instance, it's 7:53, which means right now we just had a candle, right? The candle came at 7:54. The next 3-minute candle would be 7:57. And then 3 minutes on top of that would be 8 o'clock. So let's say I wanted to enter a trade on Casper right now, and it's 7:54, which means the 3-minute candle just happened. So what we would actually do here at this time is that I would wait for the next entry point, which would be 2 minutes, right? 1 minute, I guess the easiest way to say it is this way. 1 minute before the next 3-minute candle, right? Which would be 7:57. So I would wait until 7:56, and then once that hit, then I would make my entry, right? And I'd be looking at the price right after that happened to see what it's doing, and I'd be making my entry at that point, right? If I'm waiting until 8 o'clock, then I would let the 7:59 hit 1 minute before 8, and then I would make my entry, right? And that's just because you want to let the 3-minute candle have its move, its push, or whatever it does. You want it to happen right away. And then after 2 minutes, it pretty much calms down because the next candle is going to do a move. He entered on this 3-minute candle here. And what happened was he ended up entering when it was pulling up, right? So right before it became this next candle, he bought at this bottom of this candle, right? Worst time to buy. So that's just something, that's a little thing. But now let's dig into his trade, right? So his trade, he's on a 224, right? 224, 9:35 p.m. He's on a short, right? He's on a short. So now when we go back here, right? 9, right there, he's on a short, right? So now we need to evaluate this entire trade and see where he should be entering the short, right? So the first thing we got to do is, in order to have a short, what do you need? So in order to short something, what do you need? What's the first thing that you need to short?
A red trend.
A red trend, right? Oh, no, you need a 15-minute moon, right? 15-minute moon validates the beginning of a short, right? And then from a 15-minute moon, you can look for a short based on a 15-minute trend, right? So there's a couple moons here that come up, and then the trend gives you your short. Here's a moon, here's a short, here's a moon, here's a short, right? So there's all these little shorts in here. Now, as you guys learn as you go on, you'll understand how to get bigger ones or claim the biggest ones. But 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend, you enter a short. This short pulls down. This short was worth 3%. Good trade, right? 15-minute moon. See, okay, so here's a 15-minute moon, right? It pulls down. Remember, every item has a bounce, right? So this 15-minute moon happened here. It created a move to the down. It then bounced. When the 15-minute trend came in, that's the continuation of the move, right? So always expect, these zigzags that happen there. But this is the one we would enter right here, and that would created a 15-minute short from this level down to this level here. Now, as we move forward, you wait for the 15-minute moon to come in. You get another 15-minute red moon. You get another trend right here. Creates another possible short position in here. And let's see. 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend. You're in on this position here. And let's see if this move to the top side was anything particular. So this would have been very close here for you, because this is normally when you guys get into a trade, sometimes you'll catch a bounce right now because you're not familiar with volume or or momentum. This is very, very close to hitting that 50% mark. So if you're doing a 50x leverage, that's why we have the 50x leverage. It would depend on when you entered this particular trade, but this would be really close to hitting your stop loss. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. If you're paying attention, you buy in a little bit more and try to protect that position, right? Because you see your 15-minute RSI getting to the top, so you're waiting for it to come down, right? So there's little things that as you start to learn that you can try to do to protect your position or what you're waiting for. Now, normally you wouldn't end up in this short in this position here, because what you would be doing is you'd be waiting for your 15-minute RSI to go to the top and then cross over, right? So you should actually be entering up here on this position here, right? So as you get better, you will make better entries and become a cleaner trader. But right now, you're just going through the motions, the systematic motions, just to get trades, see what happens, and move in. Alf, what up, baby? Alf's back in the game. So I kind of like what we can understand. There's little motions here, right? But if that happens to you and you see that the 15 minutes starting to go down, don't be afraid to re-enter into a trade right here and take back that position that you lost on. Because obviously, if you lost 50% on there, the only thing you would do is you would just increase and say, well, I'm going to take a 1% move, which is like this amount here, and you get back your 50% plus the 50% you lost, which would have happened pretty easily, right? So this move ends up going really hard here. Huge, huge trade comes out of there, right? But that's how the trade's all 15-minute moon and then a trend. So let's go over here and let's see kind of how he has his setup here, right? So based over here, he's working off a 15-minute moon, but he already has a 15-minute trend, right? So he doesn't need a trend to happen. He's already has one. So the one thing I notice about Decline is that he's always catching like a moon that goes back into the trend, but his problem is he's always late to the entry, right? That's kind of where he's at right now. This is called a moon reset, right? So a moon reset is basically what happens is there's a moon, right? A green moon becomes a red moon. The red moon gets a red trend, which creates a short position, right? Which would have been the first position here, right? So this short position would have been on this candle here. So you would have had this entire candle, at least the bottom of this, or we don't want to do the top because that'd be you being a grandmaster. But we do the bottom, worst trade entry, ends up going for 0.89, almost a percent in there. You would have been really close to getting into your spot there, but that would have been the area to look for the first trade into this. And then on the bounce is where the second trade would have been used or so forth to get into a position here, which would be someone in here. You would have bought into a position in here and you would be buying into this next positions. But so what happens here, kind of where what I'm looking at here, this is called the moon reset, right? This is where the red moon becomes a red trend. And then what happens is the trend stays the same during the period, but the moon changes colors, right? The moon resets, right? Meaning that it changes from red to green while the trend stays red. The reset of the moon is when the moon goes back to the color of the trend, which creates the trading opportunity right there, right? So for him, he has his entry here. He's just a little bit late on that. So let me see. Hey, Decline, you're in here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so I see. I mean, so you got in on this candle here, but see how the moon is on this candle here. So you're coming in a little late. So walk me through like when you're making this trade. Did you see this moon first, or how'd you pick this trade?
If I remember right, I probably saw it a little late, but I saw the RSI still pretty high, so I thought I'd jump in.
All right, so you were playing this right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So he gets his moon. He doesn't get his entry where he should be. Then the RSI is still in a good position. Nothing wrong with that. He's playing the RSI to the downside. So now what I have to do here is kind of like we always want to make sure that when we make the move on the RSI, which would have been off this candle here, how it looks on the 30-minute and how it looks on the 1 hour, right? So 30-minute, we're good. It's heading down, looks pretty good. 1 hour. Now, see how the 1 hour is like going sideways, but it hasn't crossed yet, right? It's still kind of high on there, but it hasn't crossed, right? So to me, that's like a little bit against you. It's not going up on you right at that moment, but when you would have seen it, it would have been pushing up. The only thing I would have done there would be basically waiting for that 1 hour to kind of level out there. So it would have been the next candle would have popped this level here where it went sideways, and that would have put the entry more on this candle in here, right? So
Okay.
that's the only thing is you got to make sure that when you make those decisions that you got at least the 1 hour going with you as well, and that's because when you look at it as a whole, you got to realize like at that moment you've already had a pullback. You see this big pullback on the 1 hour. So in reality,
Yeah.
you already had the pullback, and then it has a double move, right? It pulls back, it bounces on the 1 hour RSI, which would have been right there, and then that's where that little move would have happened, but it would have happened on this next candle. So you're either catching that top piece, and this is where looking at the, you know, the money set right there, that gives you a little earlier entry in this zone here. But when you came in late, you were coming off this candle that was already kind of like bleeding. You got caught on that bounce side, right? And that's just because the 1 hour didn't make its move to the down. Like here, it makes its move to the downside. But the problem is really just it's already made a move already once. It's kind of like going into its second move, right? It paid off, then it bounced, and then it's going back down. So you have to kind of once you miss that first big trade right there and the first push up, you have to catch this when it goes into its move, right? Because once you're on this section here, it's kind of putting you at a disadvantage with the trade because you're at the bottom of that candle right there. You see that?
Yeah.
So on that particular move, once this two big candles went through, this one candle was fine. It pulled back up. If you would have got in anywhere here, right, anywhere on that candle there, you would have definitely you've been all right on that. Or catching this particular bounce on this candle here and taking that next move down, right? So I think the only thing there was just, just make sure that when you're taking the trade, look for like trades that are kind of in the early stage and that the 1 hour is fully crossing down there. or if you see something kind of working in this direction here, you see the second move already happened, what you should be looking for is, since you had a pull down, you had a bounce, and then you kind of caught it on a pull down already, what you would have been looking for was the next move, which would be the push up again, and then catching that 15-minute coming off the top again up here, looking to get in there, right? That would have basically turned into a green trend. It would have got you out of there, and you've been looking a little bit differently. But that's the only problem I see with that, is just you just caught it late, right? It's about a 30-minute late entry on there. Let's see. So normally you want to be, as soon as you get that move alert, the alerts should be sounding, if you have them set up, they should be going off 15 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes before that happens. Should be getting an alert on this candle or this candle here. And then as soon as the 15 minutes starts to head down, you take that entry over here, right? And then remember, take the entry with the candles basically 1 minute before the candle hits. So if it's a 1 minute before the 3 minute, take it here. If it's a couple minutes before the 15, take it when the 15 minute is 1 minute from turning to 15. You know what I mean? Get yourself that entry up in this level here, and then you'd be all right. Overall, let me see as far as like.
Can you look at the 3 minute?
You want me to look at the 3 minute?
Yeah, just to see where that entry was.
Yeah, so here's your entry. You have a 3 minute moon here, right? So the entry would be the 3 minute moon, 3 minute trend area right here.
Even though you don't have a red moon by then? Or do you?
You have a 15 by then. Remember, the 15-minute candle happened over here. So the original entry, right? The entry that's like would be when the alert went off, right? Let's see. So the 15-minute moon happens on this candle here, right? And I'll make that pink, right? So when you go to the 3 minute, you have an alert here for the 15-minute moon. And it goes off on this, on that candle. So what happened was that went off. Then you would look at your alert. You'd have a 3 minute moon, and then this candle would go by. This would have a pull down, and then if you set your alert on a 3 minute trend, you would have got alerts somewhere on this candle, or even if you waited, you would have been somewhere on this candle here. So that would be the entry. The entry you have.
So even though the 3 minutes at the bottom there with the trend, you don't wait for that to reset?
Yeah, so I mean, so if you have like, okay, so here's the entry on the trend side right here, right? So if you pull your weight, then you would wait for this 3 minute to go all the way up, which would have moved your entry. So you have two options there, right? You can wait for that entry to pull all the way back up, which is okay, right? So there's two trades there, right? There's a guy who is super patient, right? Like Horse is super patient, and there's a guy like Stelios, right? Stelios is taking this trade here. Horse is taking this trade here, right? Because he's going to let the 3 minute go down.
Yeah, I'm like Stelios. I am not patient.
Yeah. So, but what you have to do is kind of like to protect you from that side is when you got the 15-minute moon and you've seen it, when you got over here, this was your entry right here, that would have came off of this candle here. So you were on this candle here. So you were basically at 35 or something like that. So you happened on this, you entered on this candle here, right? So you already had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you almost had about 22 minutes since the alert went off, right? So you grabbed this right here. And at that point, you know, if you look down, you would have said, oh, my 3 minute is headed up, right? So this is where, since you're so late to this party, you have to let the 3 minute reset.
Okay.
Because that one's headed up, right? Now, if you catch it if you catch it when the 15-minute alert goes off here, then you have a 3 minute moon, and you see this push, and it starts to go red here, and you either take this entry here, or you take the 3 minute trend entry here. Those entries are all right, right? Because you're playing with the momentum. Once the momentum drags it down, right? Now you have a move that happened. So here's the move to consolidate, right? Pulls down to here, consolidates across, and then it dumps with momentum, right? Now, once that momentum happens, now you're in a situation where you need it to bounce, right? You kind of caught it at its bottom. See how it was going flat there? Like you can see the candles start to, yeah. So you can see there that the candles were like leveling out right there. So you got in right on that candle there, which was basically its need to bounce, right? And it did bounce, and then it finished off its move. And then it started working its way back up. See, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher, then it started making its way across, and then eventually, yeah, the volume kind of falls off at this level here and starts to head down, which more than likely, I would say probably at this point here, we're probably entering the point where either at this stage or this one here, we're probably getting to the point where there's a 30-minute trend somewhere in here that causes this bigger pullback here, right? So let's take a look and see where the 30-minute trend is. And this is so you guys can kind of like understand like momentum trading, right? So if you have more momentum trading, then you end up getting into a little more, right now we use the 15 minutes just because we need you guys to make trades, right? Because that's why we tell you to only trade with 10 or 20 bucks. Because right now you're just making trades, right? Trade with 10 bucks until you get the hang of it. And what you're doing is you're getting used to making trades that happen, right? And then once you make trades and trades and trades and you got the, the mechanics down, then you start moving to the higher sets right here, right? So here's a 30-minute trend trade right here, right? Now, these are the trades that you'll be coming up with a little bit later as you move forward. These are the trades that, get you into positions where you can run them a little bit longer. You have a 30-minute trend right here, which causes that first move. The 30-minute RSI bounces at that point, comes up, and that's where you were kind of getting in that second move right there, right? The only thing is that at that time you were catching it on its move, its little bounce move right there, just consolidated in that zone. You caught it at the end, right? So if you back up, right, look at your trade, you can see, just start taking a peek at the 30. Was there a big pullback on the 30 already? Then there's a bounce, and then there's, the next pullbacks are never as greedy as the first 30-minute trend, right? You want to be attacking the pullbacks that have no 30-minute trend at that time, or like a shallow one. Like this one was shallow, it pushed up, and then it gave a big dip. Right? This one here is coming after a big pullback. So there's not too much that, it's going to keep pulling back because this is where everyone took profits, right? And it's like an 8% move. So on this one here, you're just getting the scraps of it, right? And that's kind of what that trade was. Then what happens is the 30 goes green, right? There's a little bit of pushes here, and eventually 30-minute goes red again, and it produces, this is the one that you were kind of hunting down here. This is the one you wanted to get, was another, quick 2% to the downside. Then it goes green and pulls it up. So once you start seeing the patterns, you'll see the big pull downs, consolidation, liquidity touch, and then, when you see that kind of happen there, you'll start realizing that you can play the 30-minute long. This is why you guys have 30-minute longs in play, right? So when the 30-minute long hits, it's on this big candle here. That puts you into this move somewhere on that candle at that point, right? And then that goes for a nice little 4% bounce on there, 5% bounce. But yeah, you were just kind of a little bit late to the party on those, right? So kind of take a look at your 30-minute, see if there was a big pullback. If there was a small one, then stay with it because it, can still give more, and start looking for your 30-minute option, right? So if your 30 minutes red already happened, think of it like this, right? You have options for trades in the deck, right? So if you have a 15-minute moon and a 15-minute trend, that's the first pullback. You want it to go into a 30-minute trend to give you a bigger momentum pullback, right? But once the 30-minute trend is gone, right, that card is played. So now it's like, if I catch this 15-minute pullback here, can I get a 30-minute extension? That's already been used. So I would just avoid this trade because there's not a secondary option there. You see what I'm saying? You want the 15-minute
Yeah.
moon and trend to lead into a 30-minute trend short, right? And once that option's been played, let the 30-minute trend come back into play and then catch it again when it turns back red and catch that second move down, right? And then play your up move on there. But you right here, you're just
So should I always look at like 2 trends to see what's really going on?
yeah, just flip to the 30, right? Just take a quick peek at the 30 and see if it dropped already, right? You just want to see if there was a big move that happened already. All right, so the two moves here are like there's always a two move. Here's a big move, there's a bounce. You'd want to catch the top of that bounce, and then your target, if you're looking at targets, would be the bottom of these candles. Now, if you look at the bottom of these candles and you say to yourself, okay, I'm entering this trade, right? Let's go back to the 3-minute. So let's say you hop over to this trade, right? And you see the 15-minute trend happening, the moon's happening, and you're like, oh, okay, 15-minute RSI has room to go. You slide over to the 30-minute. You notice there's a 30-minute trend already happening, but the 30-minute RSI is also headed down, right? So you're like, okay, 30-minute trend already happened. Let me mark the bottom of these quick candles here to give me a support line. Okay, that's probably a target. Let me go back to my 3-minute, okay? Now I'm in my 3-minute zone, and now I'm going to get to my short, right? So now at that point, I always want a 1.5% move towards a target line, right? A target line would be these support lines right there, or a 200 moving average, right? Or, something like that. Now we're already below the 200 moving average, so we're already on the downside. So if I took this entry right here and I measured it to that support line, right? It's the only time we really use support lines. It's just kind of like, just to give you an idea when you're in a crunch area, how much you could possibly make. You know what I mean? Just kind of like an idea. I always like to have a 1.5 to 3% possibility, right? And sometimes a little bit more, because I know if it doesn't get there, I'm getting half. I'm happy. If not, So this would have been a 0.26% to that last line that it used for support, right? Support, support. So that to me, that's one thing I wouldn't take that trade there, because it's already, at that level there. Now, the other thing that I wouldn't do is because it had that big 30-minute pullback, if I didn't catch the top right there for that next move down, then that's where I would think to myself, like, man, I missed a couple trades, right? So here's the first big pullback. It bounces. It has another big pullback. It bounces. It has another pullback, right? So that's the kind of like the trade scenario, right? There's a pullback. There's a bounce, consolidation, then it like literally just waterfalls down. It bounces, right? This is the first bounce in here, and it makes its move where it bounces up, it comes back and retests. Now it goes on a big run again. Now you're back in that scenario. Here's another move to the downside, it bounces, and then you catch that top piece. But you want to be in a scenario where you're catching it early, right? If your 15-minute moon already hit and that there's some you're 3 candles in, right? That's where I would be a little more hesitant, right? So this would be the trade here, and you're getting that bottom piece. So you're about 2 15-minute candles into that trade, right? So that's where I would be hesitant on that move, because I feel like it's already, I want to be the guy getting the momentum off of the 3-minute trend area up here. You see what I'm saying? You just have to be more greedy, right? We say being greedy, right? Greedy isn't about like taking profits. Greedy is about taking entries, right? Entries are better, right? And that's kind of where this will take a little bit of time to kind of like see it, and it's just real quick. You just scan the 30. So the way I look at it is I want a 15-minute moon and trend to lead into a 30-minute trend. If the 30-minute trend already happened, then I want to wait for a bounce, and then I want to catch the next momentum pull down off that 30-minute trend and start looking for the reversals, That's all. That was it.
When you say 30-minute bounce, are you saying it changes trends and then goes back to a short, or just moves up and comes back down in the same trend?
Yeah, I mean, because you're gonna the 30 minutes. So here's your 30 minutes, right? So when you start looking at bigger time frames, you'll start seeing how the coin accumulates and bounces, right? So once the 30-minute trend happened, right? Then the only other option is this. Okay, let's say the 30-minute trend happened right here. Okay. My next option is I get a 45-minute trend. Right. So now I'm thinking that, well, okay, well, if I have a 30 already, maybe I can get a 45-minute trend. Right. So now when I'm inside of this box here, the entry point is up here on this candle. Now notice that my 45-minute trend, right, is green here going sideways, but the 45 minutes headed up, right? And let's make sure we still on the same, yeah, Casper. So my only option for my next trade, since the 30-minute trend is gone, is for the 45-minute trend to continue this trade down, right? That's my only hope of extending this particular trade, right? And that's the possibility there, that this goes into a red trend and then this continues down instead of bouncing, right? And you can see right here the 45-minute moon, which you'd want to kind of go in there. It just happened, it bounced instead of turning red, right? It found momentum. So the only thing I would say, like, I wouldn't really overthink this entry issue. I would just say the only thing that, going into scenarios of, possibilities, right? Because, 3 out of 10 times this will go red and this your trade will be a winner, right? 3 out of 10 times. The other 7, it's not going to happen because it has people are trading off the levels and support areas for buy-ins, right? So they're going to buy against you, and they're going to be buying at wrong times, right? Because you have retail investors. They're going to cause these bounces, and then finally there's this. They take accumulation and they take the liquidity grab, right? You don't want to get caught in the middle of that by being late to the trade, right? So if you catch that 15-minute moon on that first candle and you get that entry, then you have a possibility. But if you're coming to the party and there's 30 minutes later or 3 candles later, then I would pass. You see what I'm saying? Because it's already made its move, right? So if I go over here and I look at that 3-minute entry, right? That's kind of the easiest way to every trade can go good, right? That's kind of like the best thing about it. And that's why a lot of people get suckered into trading, because they'll make bad trades that go good. And they'll be like, man, this was great. And then they get tortured, right? Because they don't understand why it went good. But when you got into this trade here, we can see at that time during that price, the entry point on the 3-minute trend was up here. It's almost at a 1% move already, you see?
Yeah.
So the only thing we're expecting is a 1% move. So at that point, since it's almost already there, I can't ask it to do a 1.76%, right? Because then I would want it to go from that level. I would want it to add another 1%. So now the original trade, I'm asking for almost a 1/178th, right? Almost 2% move, right? So the only thing I would change there is just if you're coming late to the trade, anything over 15 minutes or 5 minutes, or kind of like the candle, right? The candle does it all, right? So when we looked at this trade, the entry point was here. If I went to my 3-minute, I would have noticed that I had a trend entry here, and then I have a candle which I could have entered on here, and then I had the momentum candle, and then I had the last grab candle, right? Now, the next 2 candles showed me that there was consolidation. See how they're going flat here? This is the candle you entered on right here.
Yeah.
So there was no, this candle wasn't this candle was actually moving to the upside. So to kind of avoid having to evaluate all that or look at it, I would just be like 56K. Frank wants that 56K. I would say that just being late to the entry, right? Once there's a momentum candle and then the follow-up momentum, then that's pretty much done. right? I've seen two big pulls on those candles, and this third one is showing me that it's bouncing. Now I have to let it bounce, which means I'd let the 3-minute reset, maybe even the 15-minute, and then I go from there. But at this point, I have to let the 3-minute reset no matter what, because I'm already in a position where it's already made the trade. So that's kind of like the easiest way to look at it. It's like once it had its momentum candle down, then just call it a day on that one. Now you do have another one here. Let's take a quick peek. All right. NMR. All right, NMR, and that was 7:17 a.m. 7:17. NMR. Let's see here.
I realized I'm not very good on the weekends.
Well, yeah. And the other thing is, like, I mean, you're doing the right trades on the weekends. You're doing shorts. You just have to be, a little more. Just wait for them. The right entries. I just be a little more greedy on that. So it's harder to trade on the weekends, anyways. There's no real momentum on there. Let's see here. So we need the 25th, right? Yesterday would be the 25th, 7:17. The 25th, 7:17. So let's see, the 25th, 7:17, which would be this area here. Let me get a box. 7:17, right about there. All right, so here's your entry right here. Okay, so now same scenario, right? So I can already see here. Look at the 3-minute moon and 3-minute trend. Like, you see look how many candles already went by.
Way late.
Yeah, way late to this party. Right, but let's take a look at the 15, right? So at the 15-minute, right, and this is where it's good to review and kind of like see what, just looking for one thing to kind of like, this is why a lot of times guys will be at the scenario saying, well, let the 3-minute reset, see what happens, right? Because they're waiting to see if, scenarios. But this is the point where, what I was talking about earlier. If you see a trade and you're about to get in it, you quickly go to your 30. Right? Notice that you already had a 30-minute trend hit right here, right? So now that the 30-minute trend is out of the pocket, then I'm going to assume that that's my first move here, right? So now I have my first move on my 30-minute. I'm going to expect a bounce. Then from the bounce, that's my entry down. You see? Trend already happened, right? Trend happened, pullback. To me, I have to expect a bounce somewhere at this point. So now when I go, and then also right in here, I'm dealing with the 30 minutes already kind of on the lower level there, and we're not at negative volume yet, so it doesn't have a lot of draw or pull down. So now when we slide over here, we have a 15-minute moon. Now it's only one candle over here. And the RSI has room to come down. So you're getting all the little pieces in right now, which all that matters. Now it's just tightening up a little bit more, where a lot of times, guys like the 3-minute reset. I like a 15-minute reset, and it really comes down to like volume on everything, right? So at that point, you're a little bit late to the party, about one candle out, maybe 1.5, depending on the 7 o'clock. Yeah, you're about one candle off there. So, and that's kind of where you're catching that bottom heat right there. So you're trying to extend that move. Once again, if I take a look at, if I'm going to get this move in and I measure that first move in, right? Notice that the first move in here already went for 1%. You see? So I'm kind of like asking for it to do 2%, which is not likely, considering if I look right here to the move, notice here there was already a big move. See? There was already a 15-minute moon and trend that came down. See? So now I already had a big move happen. From that 15-minute move, I would expect a bounce, which we got. And then right here, this RSI coming down means I should have been in here on this trade here up in this upper candle with the RSI, and then that 15 minutes. So you're late on this one as well. That's pretty much all that is. So if you're catching it, all I would say is just wait for the bounce to come in, and then evaluate like if it's a trade that has momentum here. But this one, if you wait, you can see that it's constantly bouncing off the 200 here. So if you pull up and you say, well, if I got a 200, it's probably going to use that for support because there's probably a bunch of people buying in there, which means you can get an entry in here at any of these levels. So this is, your level is 1%, right? So you'd mark this here and you would say, as long as I get in this entry anywhere across this line here, I should hit my 1%. Because the 200 moving average is right here. So it has a potential target for you that you can kind of like say, okay, if most people are going to put their money on that mark right there, that means I need to enter somewhere above this mark here to make that money, right? So now when you slide to your 3 minutes, thinking of your entry, so yeah, your entry's in this zone here. This is where you needed to enter up here. So you would want this to bounce back up, go above this line here to create that 1% move to the bottom. And then on that next cycle, you would take that next trade on that next cycle right there. But these are moments where you do have something like a 200 moving average on the 3 minute or the 15-minute zone that it could use for support, right? And normally we only worry about the 200 moving average on targets on the 15, 30-minute areas, 15 and 30. So that right there just gives you an idea of like what you're dealing with. And you can also notice here that you're starting to, get a little bit of they're finding support in this area here. This first bounce. Now it's bouncing again, right? There's a little zone there. And I would just let it play out, give yourself a better opportunity, right? Let it bounce up here and then try to grab the red candles coming into this motion here. With the RSI and the 3-minute moon and trend entry, that would put you right about here. 3-minute moon, 3-minute red trend, right? And that would have been above your mark. And then that would have got your 1% there. See how that worked? So you're early on the trade. You just need to let it play out a little more, right? And if you're not catching the first move, right now you're catching the second moves. Second moves they're not as big as the first ones most of the time. They're kind of like once the big move happens, the second move is just a bounce. Normally that move will find support from the last move, right? So we want to catch, right? And I think saying it like this, so when there's a pullback and you get your first 15-minute red moon, the first pullback takes longer to develop because the momentum is still up. So when you get the first 15-minute moon, maybe a 15-minute trend, you might not get a full pullback. It might bounce and go up high. And then the next 15-minute will be a deeper pullback, right? So for instance, if I go here and I look at this 15-minute, let's go back and take a look at 15-minute scenarios, right? So here's a pump that came up, right? 15-minute moon, full pump happens here. Here's a big move. First 15-minute red moon comes, slight pullback, doesn't get a trend, pushes up. The next 15-minute moon has a better opportunity of a red trend because it's the second one, right? Because why? This is a push, this is a retest, and then this is where most people enter the trade, and there you go. So the second red momentum phase will normally be your better opportunity for the short. Now what happens there is that is the bigger move to the bottom, then it bounces. The second 15-minute move is here, not going to be as impressive as that first one because it's already taken the profits at this level. That makes sense?
Yep.
So this is just little things to put kind of like on your notepad, like, okay, I want to catch the bigger short. So normally that's the second 15-minute moon and first 15-minute trend, right? When it bounces, I'm not going to be too aggressive on the bounce play because normally once it gives up the big move on the 15-minute moon and trend, the second ones aren't as grand. So just start skipping those right now for that moment. All right. Now you'll be able to take advantage of these trades later on. You'll have to. There's some things that you would do, and we would show you how to actually make money on these pullbacks. But right now we just want to stay where we're focusing on this move here, right? We want to master how to take advantage of the best pullback, and then we'll get into how to make money on these pullbacks. We can make money on these pullbacks. So guys who've been in the academy, Stelios and Horst, they can make money on these. But we want when you first come in, you want to get this one here. You want to get the first 15-minute red moon to pull back. You want to catch that long, and then you want to reverse when you get the next 15-minute moon, and you want to catch this short with this trend, and that's it. That's what you want right there. Those are the trades you want right there. Well, just a little bit late to the party on that. All right, let's go over and we'll check out Wild. So this one happened at 8:06 yesterday. All right, so 8:06. Yeah, pull it up over here. Wild, yeah, 8:06. So the 25th. All right, first I need a box. Does that making sense to you? That is that kind of like 8:06?
Yeah, it's making sense.
Yeah, you just want you want to
Even
be.
then, you should look at Bitcoin because I think it's really similar to what we just went over, where it's currently at. It's just had a huge.
VC, I got a question.
Go ahead.
Started sitting here, the minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour, 30 minutes, analyzing every coin, sitting here and watching it go up and down like a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to understand everything you're saying now, as you explain it right now in the video. It's not Chinese to me no more. I can understand your language.
Yeah.
It's all timing and patience and understanding the RSI, because if the RSI is down, you don't enter a trade.
Yeah. You just want
Unless
to.
it's going.
Right now, what you're learning. So you got to remember, there's 3 phases to what you guys are doing, right? Phase 1 is just the systematic approach to how to enter and take advantage of a trade, right? And then the trade opportunities will repeat themselves inside of a what we call a trading zone, right? Meaning a bigger trade zone area that it gives you more protection. Right now, we're not too concerned about. Hold on 1 second. Let me slide my. All right, TikTok. There you go. We're not too concerned right now about the trading zones and all that, because right now we just have to get through 1, 2, 3, right? As soon as we can do the 1, 2, 3, then we can start doing the cha-cha, right? So right now we just want to get through the basics of how to see a very simple entry, right? Because that's what if you don't get the entry pattern down. This is an entry pattern right now. Entry pattern is 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend, enter on the 30-minute green trend for longs. Shorts, 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend, enter short, right? Very simple. 15-minute moon, 15-minute trend. If it's red, you enter on the 15-minute red short. If it's green, you need one more confirmation, because longs need momentum, which means you need the 30-minute trend to confirm there's enough volume coming in to at least attempt a long, right? So this right now is a entry pattern, right? And then once you have those steps down, the next thing you do is you go into what we call the 3-minute entry, which is the 3-minute moon and trend confirming that your decision of your trade is correct and allowing you one thing. The 3-minute is kind of like your patience zone, right? If it doesn't have the moon or the trend correct, then you're waiting. If it does, then you enter, right? And that gives you something to slow you down and think before you enter, because it's a systematic entry, not a emotional decision, right? And then once you have these steps down, then we'll have other steps that we will add on to increase your percentages and your wins, right? So right now we just need to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then we'll get into a little more of the foxtrot later. But right now we just need how to do the basics, right? So that's kind of like what's key here. So here we have a another trade where Here's wild. All right, so we have a wild entry at 8:02 p.m. 8:58:30. 8:02, 8:58:30. So 8:02, right? If I'm correct, that's 20. That'd be about there, right? 2 hours from there would be 8. Right, I would assume. So 4 hours would be 12. Yeah, yeah. All right, so 24 hours, right? 4 hours on 12 is 12, 24. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so here, 8:02, right? So right here, he entered right on this candle here. This is his 8:02 candle, right? Right in here. So right here, I can see, and was it a short? Yeah, okay, so we have at 8:02 p.m., 8:58:30, 8:58:30, 8:58:30. So now if I just go find 8:58:30, which is right here. Actually, let me just 8:58:30, 8:58:30. There we go. Eight five eight 30. All right, that's his entry point right there. All right, so now he's entering right on this green candle here. Is that right? Yeah, that's right, right? 8:05, 8:03, right? What do we have? 8:02 p.m., right? 8:02 p.m., 8:58:30. 8:02 p.m. right there, 8:58:30. Okay, so that's his entry point right there, right? So now we have to go here, and once again, he's kind of late in the party zone there, right? So you can see here 3-minute moon, 3-minute trend. You see that decline? Like you already had these moves have already kind of like, yeah, they already kind of played out here, right? There's only so much a coin's giving. Remember, we're trading into we're looking for 1.5% moves, right? So keep that in mind. When your job is to sneak the 1% out of the 1.5% move, right? Worst case scenario, right? And then if you do the look, you can tell here, notice here, there was already this big move, you see? This move that's happening here, you're getting the second part of it. You have to catch that next 3-minute moon here, right? So your entry needed to be in this zone here to have a chance, right? So now let's slide down to the 15. So what's good about this, guys? So let me ask you guys. Okay, so to understand like the 10 trade review, right? So we have a scenario here where we evaluated what do you say? Control plus G. Alf, what's that do for me? Control plus G. All right, so so we can see here, which is interesting, right? So we looked at 3 trades, right? Decline made 3 trades, right? And so far, this is probably, here's this 15-minute red moon right here, right? He's looking for his RSI to push down, which is what's happening here. He's making the decision to take the trade here, right? Now, the only thing I see wrong here versus the other ones is you see decline. You see what the 8:02? Do you see what happened here? This is the only one that's a little bit different. You don't have
the 200 average.
Yeah, but that no, but like you don't have a 15-minute trend.
True.
That's the problem right here. But what I wanted to go over was on all your other trades, the reason why we do the 10 trade review is because the system is developed to give you a very simple entry pattern, right? Now, how you calculate that pattern comes down to how your brain sees it, right? So what's interesting is the first 2 or 3 trades or whatever we looked at, you were late to them. almost the same scenario on each of them, right? So what that allows us to do is kind of like see how you're developing a pattern, right? How you see it, right? So that this one's kind of easy to fix because we can just say, hey, listen, you're catching the second bounce. Just you cannot be late on the second bounce. Like you have to catch the bounce. You got to catch that top right there. Like once that move already happened, you're coming in at the bottom of that move. That's just not going to work, right? You need to be up here.
And I
Right.
think I've been burned too many times of trying to jump a trade, so I've been trying to be more patient, and that's what the result of this is.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So the beautiful thing is like when when you say jump a trade, right? What are you waiting for to happen? Like, are you getting the alert of the 15-minute moon and then you're making the trade, but the 15-minute moon comes later after it pumps up a little more?
That or the 15-minute moon comes, I jump in, and then it goes away. And then maybe it comes back and then goes back away and reverses on me.
Okay. Now, remember, so are you waiting for the 15-minute trend to kick in on that alert, or are you just going with the moon?
Just with the moon, because I watched some videos where you said put, some in on the moon when you get it, and then you put your second on the trend.
Okay. So so right here, he's playing the moon and the trend on there. So this would be like, now normally what that's for is not on the shorts, right? That's going to be for longs, right? So if you're playing a long, right? Longs, you can, when you have momentum going for you, some guys will play the 15-minute moon, then a trend, right? And we kind of work through that flow. When you're in a short position, you need the moon and the trend to kind of like come in to get that first move because you're fighting momentum, right? When you're buying a long, right? You're actually buying the beginning of momentum, right? So you're less likely to get hurt on a long pullback because there's no push to it, right? So no one's going to sell because no one's bought. That makes sense? So if you're buying a long, right, and you're taking that moon position, normally what you're doing is you're buying into the beginning of the reversal, right? Meaning that it's already dumped, they've already taken profits, it's already been beaten up, and now it has to bounce, right? So you're actually playing into the momentum. When you're shorting, you can't take the moon without a trend because it's in the middle of a push, right? So you need the volume to solidify that it's disappearing, right? So that's the difference. So a lot of times when you first start off,
that makes a lot more sense because I thought it was for both, so I was just doing the same strategy for both.
Yeah. Just that's why they're slightly different. So in a long, it's you can have the ability to take a 15-minute moon when it's way on the bottom and it's coming up because there's not too much more for it to sell off. You know what I mean? And a lot of time when you play the 15-minute moon to the long side, do it after a big sell-off. You know what I mean? Like if a coin has just been dumping and dumping and dumping, and then all of a sudden there's a green moon, right? And what I like to do is I like to see the moon go up, then pull back, and then on the pullback is where I take the moon entry. Because then what I'm doing is I'm playing the move into the trend, okay? Because we're always expecting the move to push up one time, then we expect some type of pullback, and then we expect the move to the upside. You see what I'm saying? So when I get a moon, I like to see it push, and then on the pullback, and it starts its momentum up after that second pullback. If everything looks good as far as RSIs, I will enter there before a trend comes because I'm entering it into the trend. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So if you're playing the moons on your longs, just let it do a pullback and then take that entry on that momentum push because that gives you one more. That kind of like allows you to see a floor kind of like build up. That way, that'll avoid those 15-minute moons that push in and then completely dump. Right? You want to be you need a little bit of a confirmation that the 15-minute is holding some type of like floor, right? So you want it to push, pull back, and hold some type of support, and then start to move back up again. Like, okay, the money's moving up, looks good. Now that'll take 50% of the losses out right there. If you take the 15-minute moon and it pushes up and then it completely dumps on you because the guys who didn't sell earlier took advantage of that bounce to sell, you don't want to get caught in that. You want to kind of be the guy that sees the bounce happening, look around, see how many people are still selling, then they sell, and you're like, well, that wasn't that many, and then you hop in. That makes sense?
Yep.
So that's how you want to play that. In short positions, you got to let the momentum the volume has to come to your side, right? So the biggest thing about shorts is that you remember you're trading momentum, right? On the long position, the 15-minute moon is showing you volume towards the bounce, and then the pullback confirms support, and then you can get that next move up and then play into the trend. When you're shorting, the 15-minute moon just lets you know that buyers are done, but it doesn't mean they're selling. So when people buy, you're waiting for them to get to a level of percentages for profits. And if they're not looking, if that's not their level, then all that's going to happen is it's going to go sideways. So you need the trend to confirm that a X amount percent that we basically calculated out has decided to sell. And that normally has an 80% chance of being a short. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's how that plays out right there. So in the beginning, a lot of times, like when you're first starting, it's always kind of like, always have a confirmation of a move. So if you take a 15-minute moon and it bounces up, it pulls back and then starts to head back up, there's a confirmation into a trend, right? You can jump that low piece. In a short, you have to have a 15-minute trend. Now the confirmation on the trend would be this. It would be a 15-minute moon, a trend, a short bounce, a push up, and then another entry on that push up, and then catch that next fall of the 15-minute trend, right? So those are kind of like where, as you go along, having that confirmation is key, right? But shorts, you got to have a trend because that's when the percentages are more on the sales side than buy. Just because buyers stop buying doesn't mean they're going to sell. It just means they stop buying. So that's why over here we see them kind of like sell off, and then there was a bounce and they sold off, and people were like, well, no, this is people FOMO'd in and pushed it all the way back up. And then at that point, there was so much, upside, they started selling again, then it bounced again, and then finally people were like, oh, it's not making a higher high, and then right here you got a 15-minute trend, and then you can see right there, obviously that was a big payday right there. So what I would say is, from looking at how you're trading, you're right on top of the, you're right there in the action, right? You just need to, let things play out a little bit longer and then take advantage of it, right? If you would have sat on this trade and put a 15-minute trend alert here, you would have caught this trend down here, and easy 10% move. And that's the big boy too. That was the big boy. Because here's the big push. Here's that big pullback. It bounces and has a second pullback. And now this is, you actually got in on the retest of the up. See how it's pushing up, retest, and then went on a run? You were shorting the retest, right? So if you would have been looking at this and you would have just looked it over and you would have been like, hold up, I have a 15-minute moon, a trend. There's the push. Okay, there's a pullback, right? There's the pullback, and then I got a red moon, which means as soon as I get a 15-minute green moon, here I'm in a long. You would have actually caught this long right here. And then at that point, you would have got another 15-minute red moon, sat back, let it play out. Here's the pullback. It bounces. This is where you would be looking to get your entry. See how the 15-minute RSI can't break up? And then all of a sudden, you see the momentum candle hit, and you're like, oh, I'm getting this, I'm in here. And you take advantage of it. And then boom, the trend hits right with you, and bang, big 10% move. So you're right there. It's the calculations are slightly off, that's all. It's a little bit early. So just
Do you have any tips for like when the RSI's on the bottom like that, and then it only goes up, it doesn't even hit halfway and comes down? Like, should I be worried of getting in at
no, think
that
of it
low
like
of the RSI?
yeah, it's the situation that matters, right? So for instance, this is all pushing. There's a 15-minute RSI coming down. It pulls down. The 15 minutes starts to bounce. Normally, that's a good sign for a push of a long. The fact that it pushes up and then stops early. Now, the reason why I can take this one is because we have a 15-minute red moon. Now, if this was a green moon, then I wouldn't take this halfway move that important. I would just think of it as a consolidation and then a move up. You see what I'm saying? But since the 15-minute moon was there, it's letting me know that it's weak, right? So if it starts to have issues, right? So here's a 15-minute moon, right? RSI pulls down, comes up a little bit, fails, then there's big dump right there. See? Here's your green moon, right? RSI pushes up, starts to come down, starts to level out here. We get a red moon, which would normally say to you that, oh, okay, this could be a short right here. But the 15-minute RSI is actually bending up right there. See?
Yeah.
All right. So you see right there how the RSI is bending sideways, right? It's actually letting you know that it's building momentum right there at that moment, which is why we don't get a trend. And then when it starts to cross over, that would give us an entry to a long position because now it's got momentum to feed off of. Then at that point, it goes up. We have a trade in there. If you're not out, it comes down, pushes up again, and then eventually, starts to head down. We get a red 15-minute moon. It plays out, bounces up, fails to break out at that moment. And you can see here, look how far apart the 15-minute is from being a 15-minute moon. See that distance right there?
Yeah, it's really far.
Yeah. So once that 15-minute goes up and it failed to make a moon and then came down and failed to make a moon again and then started headed down, that would have been that'd have been the moment that you're like, okay. Another thing you can kind of do is this right here, right? So once you start looking at this secondary line, the blue line, when that line gives up, right? That's basically letting you know that the value it's gone. The consolidation moment's kind of over. Right. When this second line gives up, that's kind of where when you see both these lines heading in the same direction, that's a key right there to let you know that you need to this is an area that you can take advantage of. Right. And that's something you'll get better at as you go on because as always, you're not missing it if you don't see it, right? That move happens. And then what happens is it bounces and then you get your trend. So if you're just playing the system and you're being patient, you get your trend alert right there. You're in the same move. You see what I'm saying? So once you see this move happen, you basically like, oh, there's my move down, right? When that move starts to happen, you just look for the bounce. There's the bounce. Now you jump on that bounce and then ride it down. So you're like right in the game. It's just not you just need a little more information for the way you think to solve the problem. You know what I mean? You just need a little more info to be like, okay, just wait for that bounce, right? And then you'll start seeing it. It'll start opening up for you, like boom, right? Because you're right on top of them, right? And then you'll understand that you're at the end of a short, and you're actually going to be looking for the reversal to the top side on most of them. So that's kind of like the key. It's always a pullback, it's always a bounce, and then it's always a move down. So that's kind of like the beauty of it. By always just keeping that in mind, you're never out of a trade because it's always going to bounce back. Make sense?
Yep. It sure does.
Yeah. So just on that, and we'll throw this in the inside the academy chat. You can go back and look at it. But it's just little bitty things like that as you kind of piece forward. This one right here you just missed because it just didn't have a 15-minute trend. Right. You let that play out. When it goes to the 15-minute trend, you had a big ass trade right there. That one you were early on that one, right? You just didn't let the 15-minute trend come in. But that 15-minute trend would have came in, you would have been